Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome today to our Tuesday tea and chat here from Holy Rosary. I'm in the kitchen today. It's nice and bright, too bright to go in the conservatory, but it's cold. I managed to have a walk this afternoon just for about 45 minutes, and I was surprised how chilly it was this afternoon. But it's nice and bright now. I hope you've had a good day. I've had a good day. It's one of those days where I don't know what I've done all day, but it's been busy all day, haven't stopped. Got up, had mass, said my prayers, spoke to the Archbishop about a few things. I had emails to reply, had to send something out to the deans in preparation for a meeting of deans next week. What else did I do? We had a synod core group meeting on Microsoft Teams. It's like a version of Zoom. Then I had a bit of lunch. I'm still eating the leg of lamb that I cooked on Saturday. Still a bit more left. I went for a little walk, came back, rang a couple of priests about something, and then looked at the watch, and I thought it's nearly 10 to 5. So here we are. Somebody came to the door at some point today, wanted a mass card, and I smiled when they'd gone because they wanted a mass for somebody who died, which was lovely. And often when people come for a mass card, they say, how much is a mass, Father? And I always say, well, you can't pay for a mass. It's priceless. But what, the card costs 50p, or if they're the big ones, they cost more than that. And she said to me, well, here's 4 scones, Father. Will that do? So, that's a new price for a mass card in Holy Rosary. The big mass cards now cost 4 scones. So here's one of them. And it was very nice. So it made me smile when I was thinking of that. Thank you for the scones. Very nice. I shouldn't do that. They're very rude. My mum would be very cross if she knew I was talking with my mouth full. Have a cup of tea, I hope you have. I wanted to talk to you today about something that I hinted at on Friday. If you were able to watch and don't go back to it because it's embarrassing. In fact, I'll delete it soon. To watch the VE Day afternoon tea when I was feeling a bit silly. I've just seen a name there because we've had a few calls for help today, which has been nice, being able to do some shopping. VE Day, and I had scones and cucumber sandwiches, and I said it reminded me of the time I went to Buckingham Palace, and I said I'll tell you about it next week. So it's next week now, so I'm going to just share a moment when I got an invitation. It was I think it was 1985, so it's a long time ago. I got an invitation from the Lord Lieutenant of Lancashire to go to Buckingham Palace. I think they wanted some younger people to go to garden parties because it was something to do with a year of youth or something like that. And I was doing a lot of youth work across the Lancashire part of the diocese. And so the Lord Lieutenant, I got an invitation, and I duly presented myself at the door of Buckingham Palace. And I mean, it was a funny experience because I was on my own because it was just me. I mean, I wasn't allowed a +1, although I remember my mum came with me and we stayed in London overnight. But she just had to wait outside. You weren't allowed to take anybody else in. So I took my mum and I went into Buckingham, had to wear a suit and a pair of shoes and a clerical dress because that was allowed for a Catholic priest. And so you went in and you walked through the palace. It's a bit like, imagine if you've ever been to the Vatican to see the Pope, you get ushered through all these state rooms and they're stunning. I mean, they are splendid. I mean, they really are lovely. So then you get ushered through these rooms. So Rita and you and Vin have been to a garden, so you'll know what I'm talking about. So you get ushered through the rooms, and they're splendid. I mean, the paintings, and it's a bit like going through St. Peter's, the the apostolic palace there. And you end up outside in this garden. And then you kind of mingle in the garden and you get little canapes and sandwiches and, cucumber sandwiches with the crusts cut off. And then, kind of, I can't remember what happened, but, then the Queen comes round and you stand in a line and she walks past and you bow and that's it. So I did that. I did what I was supposed to do and said hello to her. And she never, it wasn't, you don't have a conversation with anybody. You could be anybody. Well, I didn't. And so then I thought, well, what do I do now? Because I thought, well, that's it. So I tell you what I did. So I thought I'll look around the garden so that I know what I'll do. My mum will like this. So I went in a quiet bit of the garden and I picked a few plants and put them in my pocket and gave them to my mum and said, look, I've brought you some cuttings from Buckingham Palace. And she was delighted. So even though if there's any police listening to this, I'll probably be arrested. But, one of the pluses about it was that it gave me a great sermon for years to come. And I know these tea and chat aren't sermons, but it was Jimmy who reminded me of this after Friday because I'd forgotten because it's such a long time ago. So the sermon went like this: Pussycat, pussycat, where have you been? I've been to London. You can join in this. I've been to London to visit the Queen. Pussycat, pussycat, what did you there? I saw a little mouse under her chair. And so for years I, used that as a sermon for youth days and youth masses and all those things to say that, the problem with the cat was that it had the wrong kind of eyes. It couldn't see all the splendour of Buckingham Palace. All it could see was what it wanted to eat. And sometimes we have the wrong kind of eyes too. And we look at things wrongly with the eyes of jealousy or envy or whatever. So it was worth going to Buckingham Palace just for the possibility of preaching that sermon many, many times. I haven't preached it for years, and because I've told you about it here now, I won't be able to preach it again for many more years. One more thing before we finish today. Tonight at 7:30, St. Giles will get a new vicar. Now, normally that's the kind of service that somebody like me would be invited to, and Nathan Thorpe is the new vicar, who's been a curate in a parish in Formby, I think. And Nathan and his wife's also a vicar, are going to move to St. Giles here on Aintree Lane, but obviously they can't at the moment. And his induction, his licensing is what they call it in the Church of England. The plants did survive and they stayed in my mum's garden for many years. His licensing is tonight, but they're doing it on Zoom. It's normally the guy called I've forgotten the name of the area, not the area dean, not the rural dean. I can't remember. There's 3 of them in Liverpool, Anglican diocese, who does that. Oh, it's gone out of my head. But never mind. So they're doing that on Zoom. So from tonight, from 7:30 tonight, St. Giles, our local Anglican church, will have a new vicar. His wife is going to be the vicar in Good Shepherd Church, which is in Queen of Martha's Parish, just opposite De La Salle School there. So that's very nice. So I promised Nathan that we would remember him at 7:30 tonight, and it'll be great for the people of St. Giles to have a new vicar. I've met him on Zoom a couple of times. We've had conversations. We've shared emails. He seems a lovely guy, and it'll be lovely to work with him. And myself and Lee and Neil and Nathan, it'll be fantastic. So no, Liz, it's not a circuit. I think it's the area dean. I think that's what they call the guy. But whoever it is. So that's tonight at 7:30. So it's lovely to think of St. Giles, because they haven't had a vicar there since September, since the last vicar went to London to be a full-time school chaplain in a private school in London. private school, I'm not sure, school in London, Anglican school in London. So at 7:30, if you can, say a little prayer for him, because we would have been praying for him in the service that should have taken place there, but it'll be done on Zoom somehow. So it'll be great. So thank you for joining us for Tea and Chat today. I hope we can meet again tomorrow, and I will finish a scone, and I'll leave the Facebook page running for a bit, because then we can talk to each other on James Dean. Thank you, Mike. I'll have to look it up. If it's area, I think it's Area Dean. Oh, the other thing I was going to highlight today, and I forgot, and it's worth saying, Pope Francis issued a great message this morning. It's the 200th anniversary of the birth of Florence Nightingale. Archdeacon Nathan, thank you. He's here. Nathan's watching. So Nathan, thank you. Archdeacon. I knew it was something like that. So it's the Archdeacon. And I should know, because I talk to the Archdeacon often enough, because we share some kind of role. Never mind. So the other thing I was going to talk about was Pope Francis today issued a wonderful message for the 200th anniversary of the birth of Florence Nightingale. He did a wonderful piece about nurses. I'm sure somebody will put it up on our Facebook page. Faye or Lisa or somebody will do that. They're much cleverer at all that than I am. But it's wonderful. And it's a great, it's not too long, but it's a great message to nurses. So I think Florence Nightingale is probably the nearest thing that, the English state has to a saint these days. And she obviously was a wonderful person, and by her kindness and her mercy, if you like, changed the face of nursing and medicine in lots of ways. So that's great. So I hope you have a good evening. I'm going to dare to go to Asda a bit later on. Haven't been to a shop for a while, but I'll go later on this evening. So thank you for joining us. Have a good evening. Stay alert, be alert, whatever alert is. Make sure you are it. We'll start a society for the preservation of alerts, and we can all join it. And we have Mass tomorrow, and we'll see you then. Thank you very much. Take care, everyone.